Hey everyone, excited to be back for this week's edition of Frequently Asked Questions for Commercial Real Estate. This past week, I had conversations with 3 developers that are looking to enter our market for a variety of different purposes. One wants to do a kind of a larger retail development incorporating some national tenants. Another one wanted to do a kind of a non-permanent structure for a indoor sports facility. And then we had another person as well that was looking to do more on the multifamily development side. So it's a wide mix of different people that we had conversations with last week. And that kind of brought up this topic of discussion, which is what are some of the considerations for developers as you're looking for sites to be able to do whatever project you're trying to do. So before I dive in this video, I'd greatly appreciate if you can like and subscribe to this channel. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm and ensures more and more people can hear this message and learn about the many facets of commercial real estate. So now I've done that, go and like and subscribe below. Let's go ahead and dive right into this episode. All right, so the question is, what considerations do developers have to take into consideration before taking on a project? So this is a process whereby you assess what type of sites, if they're viable for what you're trying to do. So first and foremost, you define what you're trying to develop. So we kind of talked about the several developers that we've engaged with that are looking to do retail, industrial, and one wanted to do multifamily. So they've defined their product type. From there, you have to find sites where the highest and best use is exactly what you're trying to develop. What highest and best use means is that if you were to look at this piece of land or site, you would determine that yes, this in fact is the retail is the best for this site, or industrial is the best for this site, or multifamily is the best for the site. So for example, if there's a residential home that's on a major roadway and everything in that area is commercial and it's been shifting to commercial, maybe the highest and best use for that site is no longer residential. Maybe it is in fact commercial retail, because now you've got a lot of traffic, you've got a lot of eyeballs, and now retailers are wanting to come in to potentially knock down a house and build a Starbucks or a Scooters or something like that. So assessing what the highest and best use is for that site is the first step in the process, and that's where brokers come in to be able to provide that context. Number 2 is entitlements. So is it properly set up so that you can develop what you're trying to on site? In the house example, let's say that house is zoned residential and everything around it is commercial. Well, obviously, since it's zoned residential, you can't develop a retail shop there. So you have to go through the process of getting it what's known as entitled, meaning you bring it from, put it towards this, put a plan towards the city saying, hey, we're going to build a retail shop here, and you have to rezone the property to ultimately become whatever that next step is. So that's where entitlements come in, and that sometimes you have zoning entitlements, meaning you change it into a particular zoning to support that use. And second, you may need to get some variances or waivers depending on the plan that you propose. So if there's a setback requirement, meaning that the building has to set back from a sidewalk or the neighboring property a certain amount, if your design calls for it to be 10 feet, but there's the actual documentation with the city says it has to be 15 feet, then you may have to go to the city and request either what's known as a variance to modify that so that your design can actually be pursued as intended. So that's where the second step comes in, is entitlements. And oftentimes, as brokers, we will refer zoning attorneys or land use attorneys to be able to help through that process so that you're able to navigate any of the landmines that are out there, because each individual site is different. So, one site may be uncontentious, meaning you bring it through the process and there's no neighborhood questions about it, or there's no people that are upset about the development. And then there's other times where there's a lot of opposition. So you have to be able to account for that. And usually professionals like land use attorneys are people who can help you through that process. So that's number 2, is determining entitlements. Number 3 is site prep. So you look at the land. Not every piece of land is a nice flat piece of land that has utilities, roads, and everything running to it. Sometimes pieces of land have interesting grading meaning how it lays, right? So there may be hills, there may be streams, there may be all these different types of things that you have to consider as you're looking at sites. Along with that, we talked about utilities, right? Does water, sewer, electric run to the site, or do you have to bring it yourself as the developer? What about roads? Does it have access to the roadway? Otherwise, you may have to build a private road to access the property and provide inflow and outflow for either the new residents or the new business people, or the new businesses that are receiving customers on site. And are there any obstructions? So is there a blue line stream that runs through the middle of the property, which makes it difficult for you to develop a clean development on site. Now you have to factor that in your analysis when you're determining how many square feet you can actually develop on site. So all these different considerations have to be looked at before you decide to pursue a development. And that is where land engineers come in. Oftentimes architects will come in as well to be able to help you design a plan that makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish. And so again, this is where brokers come in to be able to introduce you to the people that you ultimately need to be introduced to so that you can then answer these questions more readily and make sure that the development is a viable one for you. So that's number 3, is site prep, getting an understanding of what obstacles are in the way of you being able to bring your vision to life. Number 4 is the design phase, right? So, depending on where the site is located, there may be some restrictions on what you can and can't do as far as design. For example, if you're part of a larger development and you buy an outlot in front of a Walmart, as an example, Walmart is going to have probably some restrictions on what can be developed on that parcel. And they may even have some design restrictions. Maybe they say something along the lines of, you can't be more than a certain amount of square feet. Maybe the facade has to be a certain way that is in line with the other buildings that are next door. So all these different restrictions are put in place to make sure that there's not just random buildings with all these different types of facades that could make the center look weird and not very attractive, because again, Walmart wants to make sure that people that come to the center know what to expect every time. So that's just one example. Maybe you're in a historic neighborhood and there's certain design restrictions that you have because the city doesn't want to see they want to see uniformity amongst the buildings. They don't want you to build up this monstrosity that has steel and glass everywhere, because a lot of the buildings in that area maybe have brick facades. And so they want to make sure that you maintain the uniformity of the area. So whenever you're looking at sites, you have to take this into consideration. And that's where architects come in, to be able to look through the codes and look through all the different restrictions as far as designs are concerned, and provide you with one that hopefully you can be satisfied with and you decide you want to pursue. And you take that design, once it's all completed, and you go out and bid to the different contractors. And if you have a general contractor, they'll go do that with all their subs. Or if you yourself are operating as that, then you'd have to go out to all the subcontractors and get all the different quotes of what needs to be done to be able to bring the vision to life. But that piece of the process is another consideration as you go through it. And usually you'll do this after you've already gone under contract on the property, you've invested time and energy into engaging with architects or engaging with land engineers. Maybe there's land use that you're already going through. So this is all done in succession as you're getting to the finish line, so that you can have the design and then ultimately go and present it to the city. And hopefully at the end of the day, you get that approved and you can move forward. And then finally, once you go through that process, is the construction phase, which ultimately you as the developer are going to be responsible for, whether that's you as the person who's operating the deal and you are engaging with a GC or a construction manager, or you yourself are managing that process. And at the end of the process, once you get at least ground broken or you're getting through the process of construction, someone like myself will come in and help you lease up the property. Oftentimes, developers will engage us well before the project is complete, because you can still try to lease up space or pre-lease space before construction is complete. And that's ultimately what you would want to do, because you don't want to wait until the construction is complete and then all those payments starts. I mean, you're going to have to pay interest payments throughout the construction period, but once the full payment starts getting paid to the bank, and you don't have any tenants in there, right? So oftentimes people will developers will engage people like myself to be able to advise them on the types of uses that could potentially go into these types of buildings. We'll give them an idea of the average lease rates for whatever product they're trying to deliver, and we'll aid them in the process of determining whether or not a site can be viable based on what type of rents we can achieve. And then once we get to a point where the project is viable and we can move forward with it, they'll engage us to go out there and find tenants for them. And that's what we're trying to do with several of these developer clients, is to help them through that process. And so that's kind of a high-level overview of some of the considerations to think about when you're looking to develop a project. And that's where brokers like myself, who are experts in our local market, come in to be able to help make this process more seamless. And I obviously have connections with all these different professionals that I highlighted in this video, and I'd be happy to open up my Rolodex to you as a developer if you're looking to develop in this region. So if you're looking to do that, please reach out to me. My number is 502-536-7315, or you can reach me via email at Raphael@sumcg.com. Thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.